Yes, sir. Good evening and welcome to the August 14, 2023 council meeting, Committee of Adjustments, and the public planning meeting will be addressed starting at 7 p.m. Members of the public have been provided with the following methods to watch and or participate in the open meeting this evening. Attend the township office located at 2958 Greenfield Road. Second, watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the township's YouTube page. Third, attend electronically to observe the meeting or to speak to an item on the agenda. To attend electronically, members of the public were requested to register with the Clerks Division in advance. Or submit written comments to the Clerks Division that have been provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd now like to call the meeting to order. Can I have approval of the agenda, please?
So, Council Tilly, that council adopt the August 14th, 2023 council agenda as presented with the following addendum. One, add one piece of correspondence received for item 6.1 for number PD 33-2023 A0623 1031 Dunkley Road. Two, add one piece of correspondence received for item 6.2 for number PD 34-2023 A0723 580 Piper Street. And three, add three pieces of correspondence received for item 6.3 report number PD 35-2023 A0823 3936 3942 Old Beverly Road.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now I'd like to have the indigenous acknowledgement. We acknowledge that land on which we gather today is the judicial territory of Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the indigenous people with whom we share this land, their achievements and their contribution to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between indigenous and non-indigenous peoples of Canada. I think a lot of people are afraid of the word reconciliation because they don't know what it means. And I always remember Eva Hill, she was the past chief of the Six Nations, who came here and said it was respect, mutual respect. And that was all that she said they wanted. They wanted to be recognized as equal. My sister-in-law is indigenous. She lives up in Yukon. And I said, well, you know, most of your neighbors are indigenous, so you wouldn't know prejudice. And I said, when you go into short stories, you're not doing that. She goes, no, I am. She still is. She says she goes in and there could be nobody in the store, no one will help, no one will wait on her. She does. And we have to change this attitude of us and them. It was just me. So as we reflect on this, let's think about that and about treating everybody fairly. When we disclose your pecuniary interest in generating thereof. Councilor Austin.
Yes, I have a conflict of interest with item 6.4 89 Piper Street.
Thank you. So much about it. We are now moving on. Can I have the agreement to meet as committee of the whole, please? Councilor Rowland.
For myself, and Council Williams, that council adjourned to sit as the whole.
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Is there any in 10.1, committee of the whole finance functions area, and development services functions areas, any items for? Anybody in the public wish to make a comment?
So all the 10.1 to 10.4.
Or is there,
Yes, there's
the
one.
only item is the West Development Plans, Cambridge West Development Plans, letter of credit reduction. Would you like to discuss that or can we carry forward?
So I'm asking this is 10-1-1 to 10-1-4, any of those?
No,
Or you just want
10.1.2, which is the West, Cambridge West Development Plans. And I don't credit,
So are you going one by one or?
you will be in the next. Councillor Austin, you have that motion, please.
I move myself, second by Councilor Chili, that the committee of the whole recommend the following items be approved, as presented as outlined in staff reports listed in the development services function area. 10-1-2A report number PD 38-2023, letter of credit reduction, Cambridge West Development Plans file number 30T-16103 and 30T-16104. That PD report number 38-202 be received. That the letters of credit for the Cambridge West Development Land subdivision file number 30T-6103, 30T-6104, Alma Construction Limited and Brian Dumb, be closed out and returned to the owners, applicants, as all outstanding work has been completed in accordance with the servicing agreement.
All those in favor? Carry. We are now on 10.1.3 community service instructions. They are the airport lights, event debrief and draft special event standards, the update amendment to the 2024 ICE usage, and the Challenger Park Avenue naming contest. Would anyone wish to pull any of the items? Councilor Williams and then Councilor Williams.
I think we should pull the item on the special events.
Portquest, okay. And Councilor Williams?
I believe we have to discuss,
Yes.
the right.
Okay, Councilor Williams, please.
I was just reading over the special events standard. And on page 5 of 19 of that report, it says that no number of participants are expected to strong from one side to 80 kilometer radius of Toronto. That's called out of town attendance. I was wondering if I thought out of town would meant out of region.
Staff comment?
Through Mayor Fox to Council, we can certainly fix that and make it outside of North Dumfries. We're just looking at how far people are going to come to participate in the event. So we can make that change for sure.
Okay, any other comments in regards to the Portquest fund? Seeing none, and we'll go on to number 3, which is the naming. Of Barlow and Bruce Legacy Division of the contest. Any comments on the contest? We need to give direction, correct? Okay. We're going to pass the first one, which is the Portquest. Councilor Williams, would you please do that motion? Councilor Williams, I'll give you a copy of it if you want, because it's really messed up.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Williams, that council received REC report number 14-2023, and that council grant permission to Laura Gautier Airport Trust to organize and implement the 2024 Airport Trust event on June 22 2024 on Hilltop Drive between the two lights, Howard Marshall Street. And that council adopt the new special event standard to facilitate future community events.
Thank you. All those in favor? And again, as amended, thank you. As amended, I'm going to put on the motion that. And I need you to, initial it. Thank you. And Council Rose, again, we have the next one, which is, yeah, just take mine. Just a minute.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Tilly, the council received RC report number 15-2023. And that council endorsed the following parameters for the 2024 spring ice session. Commences spring ice section starting April 1st. And ice rentals to be completed by the May long weekend, May 2024, Monday and last day if needed. Negotiate with the air centennials and the rental hours to complete the 4 camp prior to the May long weekend. If necessary, the camp utilize 2 weekend dates for their final week, Saturday and Sunday. This will allow the prospect camp to start a week earlier. The air centennials would have to host their prospect camp prior to May 2024. And staff are to undertake a more visible and enhancing advertising campaign to fill the extra ice times that are available in the overall promotion of the spring ice season.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. I'm not sure what you're asking for is that council provide direction to staff on naming of new park. Okay. Because I thought you were doing a contest. So how can we give you direction? Go ahead, that's.
I think it's for the other part.
Oh, the Bruce Legacy subdivision. So are we supposed to provide names?
So Mayor Fox, what we're asking for is, we're doing the, naming contest for 23 Challenger.
Okay.
What we would just like to know how council would like us to handle 291 Bravo, the Legacy Bruce one. Would you like to do a contest? Would council like to decide what the name should be? Is there someone we can name it after? We're just looking for some direction on what to name it or how to name it.
Council Rowland.
Madam Mayor. With regards to itself, new park itself there, since it's the 200th anniversary of AIR, I'm wondering if the name shouldn't be chosen as the 200th anniversary. I guess we can't go with Bicentennial Park, that'd be too confusing. But should we think about the first settler, like much Park maybe, or that's confusing as well? I don't know. The other option is just to go with Self Air Park or something like that. But I'm wondering, since it is a 200th anniversary, maybe we should think about something that ties in with 200.
Now, this is the Bruce Park, right, which is part of Galaxy's farm, or is it part of Mitchell? So what about Mitchell Park? Or what about our list of, our street name list, that we have, many people in the past? Are there any good names that stand out in that list? I'm gonna go off the cuff here and ask the person from the Air Preservation Society if they can think of any good names for the area.
I think it'd be nice if we could bring it up at we have a meeting coming up. Be nice if we could talk about it.
Do we want to defer it and wait for a suggestion from them, and at the same time, we can run some suggestions for us? I like Mudge. I loved what the store Mudge Hall when we had it downtown. I really liked it, and it was the first set, I do like that. But and we can wait till our next meeting if that's okay with council to defer. Council Scott.
So I was looking to find out what the direction was as well with the question, whether we were going to name it or something was already set up. So it's interesting that we still have that option. If we could defer it, that would help.
And it gives us some time to do some research. I like March, but I also like that because it's the Mitchell Forum and Mitchell's been a great family in the community for a long time, so. Yeah, I think we'll get some suggestions maybe from Preservation Society, if that's okay, we can do this. So we have to separate these out as part A. I think we want to go with the contest, correct? And, so we received the report and the naming of challenging part of the contest. And then we need a separate motion for, Bruce Legacy subdivision in Southern. So I will just scratch through the number 3 and you can put that up separate, please. And, have you read that motion yet? So can you read 1 and 2 and scratch through number 3, please?
Moved by myself, seconded by myself.
Okay, we're gonna put Councilor Rowland there.
You can alternate.
You're a star. That's because you got the long.
And don't forget, I approved by myself.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Rowland, that record report number 16-2023 be received, and that council authorized staff to commence the naming of the park contest for 23 Challenger Avenue.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to give this to Councilor Ossier and Councilor Tilly. Just to give you a break, Councilor. You're not paid by the village.
Moved by myself, second by Council Chili, that council defer the naming of the new park located at 291 Robert Wilder within the Bruce Legacy subdivisions in Southern.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. Carried. So under government's protective services, we have the proposed set fines for noise bylaw, the noise bylaw exemption, backyard weddings at the 4th of August, Maple Crescent. Or Arch Maple Crescent museums. CAO's report framework for funding campaign, North Dumfries Dump Truck Committee, and July 2023 incident summary report. Any of those you wish to pull? Seeing none, I think this is your comment. I will not make you read your entirety. Then just
Moved by myself and by Councilor Ossner that the committee of the whole recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in staff reports listed in the governance and protective services function area. 10.1.4A, report number bylaw 08/2023. 10.14B, report number bylaw 09/2023. 10.14C, report number CAO 17-2023. 10.14 G, report number FD 09/2023.
all those in favor? Carrie, thank you. We'll now have the motion to again and see this committee of the whole. Councilor Tilly, please. No, wait. Go back to, yeah. Yeah. You have it? This is the one here?
Yep, got it. Moved by myself, second by Council Ossner, the committee of the whole is hereby adjourned and council meeting called back to order.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. And the resolutions, the adoption of the committee of the whole resolutions is Councilor Tilly. Hold on.
Moved by myself, by Council Tilly, the council adopt the resolutions as presented by committee of the whole dated August 14, 2023. One, report number PD 38-2023, letter of credit reduction request, Cambridge West Development Lands, files numbers 30T-16103 and 30T-16104. Two, report number rec 14-2023, Airport Fest event debrief and draft special event standard. Three, report number rec 15-2023, update amendments 2024 spring ice usage. Four, report number rec 16-2023, 23 Challenger Avenue Park naming contest. Five, report number bylaw 08-2023, proposed set fines for noise bylaw 3421-23. Six, report number bylaw 09-2023, noise bylaw exemption, backyard wedding at 4 Autumn Maple Crescent. Seven, report number CEO 17-2023, framework of a funding campaign, Lord Company's Track Committee. And eight, report number FT 09-2023, July 2023, incident summary report.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next, we have adoption of the minutes. Council Lawson, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williams, that council approve the following minutes, council meeting minutes, July 10, 2023, and special council meeting minutes, July 17, 2023.
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Communication correspondence, is that correct? Well, communication correspondence, does anyone want to pull anything from correspondence? We have, increased allowable spaces for licensed home-based childcare. A resolution from the municipality of Wawa, OHIP coverage for chronic pain treatment. Correspondence from North Dumfries Conservation Alliance for the decision to not enact nutrient control bylaw. Woodstock resolution, homeless and opioid crisis. Correspondence from City of Toronto, comments on proposed provincial planning statement. And last one, correspondence from the Waterloo Region Community Town Halls, drug poisoning crisis in Waterloo Region. All good. Okay, and Council Williams, you can read things. I just read.
Moved by myself, seconded by Council Williams, that the following be received by the purposes of information. 14.1.1, resolution of the county increasing allowable spaces for licensed-based childcare. 14.1.2, resolution of municipality Wawa. OHIP coverage for chronic pain treatments. 14.1.3, correspondence from the North Dumfries Conservation Alliance regarding decision to not enact interim control bylaw. 14.1.4, resolution from State of Woodstock, homelessness and opioid crisis. 14.1.5, correspondence from the City of Toronto, comments on the proposed provincial planning statement. 14.1.6, correspondence from the Waterloo Region Community Town Hall, drug poisoning crisis in Waterloo Region.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. The next one is Council Williams and Council also seconding. So 1-3-10 only. Good. Is there any other business anybody would like to discuss this? I would like to just pause for a minute and recognize the passing of John Reed. She was an amazing individual. She was vibrant and active. She fought for the rights of individuals. She was very active in the women's issues. She was an amazing person. She gave it all. And it was shocking to all of us that she had passed on. CEO McNeely was telling me that Dr. Craig had just talked to her on Friday, I believe he said, CEO McNeely. And so her passing is quite a shock. And will be, she will be dealing with. She was a wonderful lady. So we pause for a few seconds as we remember her calling. Thank you. And the funeral will be on Friday. It will be from 2 to 5, 2 to 3 is visitation. It is at English City Hall. 3 to 4 is the actual service, and then small gathering after the service, about 4 to 5. I plan to be attending. Is there any other business from council? Seeing none, we'll go on to mayor and council's reports and 16.1 memorandum, Board 3 Town Hall meeting, Council Williams.
So moved by myself, seconded by Council Author, the council authorized Council Williams request to add a Ward 3 Town Hall meeting at the West River Road Reformed Church located at 1410 West River Road on Thursday, September 21st at 7 p.m. And that council authorized the rental fee in amount of $150 to be funded from account number 10-110-0100-016. Council advertising and promotion.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The next one up is the Schmidt Park vandalism. Does anyone talk about it for a second? Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Madam Mayor, so I guess vandalism continues in the village and most recently at Schmidt Park. The damage to the pavilion, maintenance building. So I guess the question is for council, is it time to think about some sort of camera system to observe what's happening? Is that going to be effective? I don't know. Also thinking about building that new playground there and the new trails there. Do you want cameras facing that direction as well? So the playground or the tennis courts? I don't know. I have visiting my family that lives nearby, seen, teenagers hanging out in tennis courts. That's no good. So maybe it's a greater issue, not just the pavilion and the building, maybe it's also the playground and tennis court we need to think about. That's kind of the update for council.
Councilor.
Roman, I have numerous cameras in my place, and I fully think cameras are a way to keep your content, but it does take. The problem is like when I got broken into a couple of years ago, we saw the bases, we saw the bases, but we couldn't do anything because it wasn't really anything. So I think it's maybe a great start, but might actually, as I said, make people aware that you watch. So signage, that'd be the first big start, and then the cameras maybe supplemental because unfortunately, I just don't know how effective. Maybe it's my camera system, I got blink, but maybe it's just not. That it is disappointing, just to be honest about that.
Council Williams.
I think my big concern is just around privacy issues related to that. How are we storing this data? How long are we storing this data for? Who all gets access to it, etc. And I think that without that kind of information, I don't think we need to should be going forward.
So, Councilor Austin.
I agree with Council Rowland. Get the cameras up there, make sure they're good cameras. And make like Councilor Tilley said, the signage, make them aware that they're signage. Privacy rules, if they're doing vandalism there and anybody recognize them, so be it. Number one, we gotta protect the community and we gotta protect the assets of the community. And if it's not like some stranger coming in and robbing a business or something, these are kids that are hanging around, have nothing to do, and they're goofing around. Kids be kids. It's always happened. It will continue to happen. And if we have them on video, somebody will recognize them, and we can deal with that appropriately.
Councilor Tilley.
I agree with what you're saying entirely. And then that might be the dissuadance and that would can convince others not to do the same. Because you have to set a standard. Right now, something was able to be done with almost literally zero consequence to the offenders. So it just would be a step forward to doing that. Whether or not we would actually do it, but at least they would know that they're being watched. So that is the one way to stop people from doing when they're being watched. I assume the lighting, I don't spend much time out that way at night. Is the lighting efficient and sufficient there to do that is just now it needs to be enforced with some other support.
I have cameras and they have like night lighting, so that they check up house rooms.
And cameras is not just the privacy of people who are doing the wrong things, also the privacy of people who are just playing around and having fun. This is why I would like to have a better understanding of who all has access to these features, how long are they stored, where are they stored, etc. That's
CO McNally.
Mayor, it's just Councilor Williams providing some context. So we already do have cameras in the building. And so we're obligated to actually post visible signs saying that we're moving or in an area of that video recording is occurring. All of our cameras go up in the cloud, and their length of storage depends on how much activity is actually being. So with the low activity area, if there's a lot of movements, cameras triggered. Generally, it would probably be about 30 days. If it's a higher traffic area, generally in around 20 days. And obviously, the advantage is we know the first day or so. And then we try and figure out, okay, when did that event occur? And we would download in and around the anticipated time of when we believe the incident occurred. There are a limited number of staff that have access to the video feed. We actually have internal administrative policy about the issue. This is about 3 years ago when we did the video cameras for this building, and myself, treasurer, and director of Leisure and Community Services are the ones that actually have to sign off to access the video feed, so that it can view the segment, for lack of a term, where we believe the events occurred, and then depending upon the nature of the incident, typically handed over to the WRPS to form part of the incident occurrence report, and was damage to one of our assets. The police utilize that as required as part of their investigation.
Councilor Thompson.
So my follow-up question to that statement would be, does CAO and staff agree that this is a good investment into the video cameras? These are the ones that are already dealing with this on a daily basis.
So I'm very due to Councilor Kelly. I mean, it is frustrating to see the damage that was done 3 weeks ago. There's quite an expense to go back in and make that repair. You can't believe the damage. And so it's money that's not actually adding any value. It's not adding more capacity to the parks, or programming opportunities. It's repairing petty vandalism. What you need to make those repairs, soft vegetation, damage extensively. Now we run the risk, we don't repair either moisture getting into the attic space and or animals, which then can cause other impacts on the attic space. So we have found in this area where we have extensive cameras within the site, it has been a deterrent. And it has been useful for the WRPS when they had to do follow on. So I would assume it would have the same beneficial capacity at this.
Councilor Wells.
a question. So one of my other questions I have as well is how frequent is vandalism in our parks? And also, do we have any standard by which we say, all right, one-time vandalism or X amount of dollars that we put in cameras, or what is, because now it seems like we're going to be doing it ad hoc based on a bad vandalism scenario. This is the proposal, but is this something that should actually be considered for other parks or other areas?
Madam Mayor, the issue of vandalism almost comes cyclical. It's not every weekend, it's not every year to this extent, but we have had incidents at this park where we have had vandalism to the buildings. I believe 3 years ago, we actually had something trying to set one of the washrooms on fire. The issue of damage to the picnic pavilion and the maintenance building has been something that's been chronic over the years, but the extent of damage done this year, 3 weeks ago, is far more than we had witnessed in the past in that regard. So I wouldn't say that it's constant, but we do seem to go through these issues, and we're now trying to broaden the activities at this park. And so there are more people coming into the park. And that in itself, you would hope would act as a deterrent. But it also may bring in people that may work at the edges of the park and continue this pattern. I think it's not a significant investment in this. We should have in terms of what the township has put into the park over the last couple of years.
Councillor Taylor.
In my opinion, generally after the fact that you should have this security system in place. That's it, by the time it happens and you needed one, it was just too late. So proactive, it was a good comment that Mr. Ronald had comment as well. It's time. It maybe just get crazy. We're adding hundreds more people over the next period of time. That we can get rid of it. Or we can nip it in the bud and do something to stop it. I guess.
I haven't. I wasn't gonna tell them, so but we were being harassed, has been around my home for a number of weeks. We got cameras and had to shoot them for a week and then they came back, and it was tenant night, scary as hell. And we put the cameras in and we cut back our hedges for this stuff. And then I saw on Facebook, seeing that it's happening in Colonia Garden. So there is a group going around. They are doing damage and they're literally terrorizing people in their homes at night when you're near bedtime. And if the cameras deter, that's great. If it doesn't, what if it escalates? And what if people want revenge? I think the cameras are probably the safest way we can go to get these people through whatever phase they're going through onto the next level. It's not to us to antagonize the people or anything, it's us to be preventative. That's the whole purpose, prevention. If the camera never brings out any results, I think that's a win. Because the park over the years has been dealt with several times. But also I think Victoria Park had a time or two when they were familiar in that as well. So I think it's a coming of age for us, and no longer a small town. And but that's not totally true. Vandalism has happened since the dawn of time. It's just what some people do in the summer when they're off. I think it's a good thing. I think if we can keep the individuals away from the building, because heaven help us if somebody got told while they were doing vandalism. And can I have the motion, please, Councilor Rowland? And people will have a voting.
And it's also by Councilor Tilly that council authorizes the purchase, installation, commissioning of a camera, a security camera system adjacent to the Picnic Pavilion and maintenance washing building at Jim Schmidt Memorial Park. And that the treasurer be authorized to fund the completion of this project in the amount not to exceed $16,500 for the capital reserve account.
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Opposed? Vote. How long ago, so you think it's still open?
So there are 2 reports for
Yes.
legal counsel here for one of them. And I'm not coming in until a 7:45.
So we are going to just pause.
So we can deal with the money camera report if you wish.
So we will put aside those. And we will, we're gonna just wait, we have 20 minutes. Can I ask a few people to step up, please, and we're going to just go into post for a few minutes, if that's okay?
I'm close to that, I believe.
Okay, so sorry, a few minutes, thank you. Neil McNeil, are we just dealing with item two? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
Identify on the individual.
yes. Mr. Austin, the first paragraph to be caught up, and we will be reading the second one. Would you read this one, see if it's got the franchise? The cameras are stopped. Okay, so the motion is Council Rose. Council's, oh, complete it, okay. Okay, Council Ross, what does that mean?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wilms, that council moving to close the meeting session at 6:42 PM. Under the municipal act section 239. To discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
Have a motion, please, Council Ross. Scary, thank
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Councilors, we have 30 seconds. Councilors, we have 30 seconds.
Recording.
Somebody got it wrong. Okay, what's coming out of closed, Council Williams, motion, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Council Wilman. The chief administrative officer may recruit, hire, or extend a temporary facility operator for the equivalent of
Okay,
80 hours.
hours coming out of closed, motion, please.
Moved by myself. Okay, 40 hours per week is a backfill position for a maximum time period of up to 8 months and to extend beyond the end of April 2024. And not to exceed.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. And now can I have another motion, Councilor Austin, to go into, to adjourn with, Council Board to committee the whole. Yeah, leave adjustment.
Item 6.
Yeah, this one here, leave adjustment, the ones who give me this.
Move by myself, second by Council Williams, that council meeting be adjourned at 7:01 PM to sit as committee of adjustment pursuant to the provisions of the planning act.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Members of the public are able to attend the township office in person to speak to any application or register with the clerk division in advance to attend electronically. Members of the public who have registered to attend electronically have been provided with a Zoom link to join the meeting this evening and have indicated to staff which application they would like to participate in. Staff will move these individuals who have registered into the meeting to speak in order of the application being heard, and those who are present in the person will be able to speak to the application when it's reached on the agenda and will be asked to approach the podium to speak. Please note that all speakers are provided with no more than 5 minutes to address the application. If before time, each speaker advise the chair when a 5-minute time limit is up. Report number PD 33-2023 A-623-1031 Dumfries Road. Notice has been given to those who attend, those in accordance with the planning act. The secretary treasurer will record everyone who has commented on this application, attended, and or have registered with the clerk division to attend the meeting this evening. These individuals will be notified of the decision and or convening of future meetings. I'd now like to introduce Christina Blazanovic, planner GIS technician, who will be sending this application. Christina, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The following presentation is for minor variance application A06/23 located at 1031 Dumfries Road. The purpose of this meeting is to provide an overview of the proposal, to solicit comments and identify issues or matters to be assessed by staff. The property is located north of the intersection of Dumfries Road and Wrigley Road. The property has a lot frontage of approximately 41 meters onto Dumfries Road and is 0.98 acres in size. The subject property consists of a 1-story single detached dwelling, a proposed coach house, 2 detached garages, a gazebo structure, chicken coop structure, and a doghouse structure. Surrounding land uses are residential, agricultural, and environmentally sensitive lands. The subject property is Zone 1 agriculture and designated rural area and protected countryside in the township of Bishop Point. The applicant proposes to convert an existing accessory structure into a coach house. The proposed coach house is approximately 7.7 meters by 7.5 meters for a total area of approximately 60 square meters. The height of the proposed coach house is approximately 4.26 meters. The applicant also is also proposing to request reduced side yard setbacks with 3 of the other existing accessory structures. The 3 existing structures include a gazebo, chicken coop, and doghouse. The gazebo is approximately 7 by 9 meters. The chicken coop is approximately 2 by 3 meters, and the doghouse is approximately 3 by 4 meters. The concept plan on the right indicates where each of these accessory structures are located on the property. The owner is requesting the following minor variances for the proposed coach house. Section 6.40.7 of the general zoning bylaw does not permit a coach house to be greater in size than 40% of the footprint of the principal dwelling. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit the coach house to be 55% of the footprint of the principal dwelling, which is an increase of 15%. In section, the second variance, section 6.40.9I of general zoning bylaw establishes that the height of a coach house cannot exceed the height of a principal dwelling, and in no case shall be more than 3.6 meters in height. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit the coach house to exceed the principal dwelling by approximately 0.15 meters or 6 inches, and to permit the coach house height of 4.26 meters or 14 feet. The photo on the left is a view from Dumfries Road. The principal dwelling is shown on the left side, and one of the accessory garages is shown on the right. In between the two, at the far back, is a view of the proposed coach house in the rear yard. And the photo on the right shows the proposed coach house within the rear yard. This building will not expand any further from what is shown in this photo. The owner is also requesting the following variances for the 3 existing accessory structures. Section 6.4.1 of the general zoning bylaw establishes that no person shall erect or cause to be erected an accessory building within a required side yard. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit the existing gazebo, chicken coop, and doghouse to be located within a required side yard setback. And in section 6.42, the general zoning bylaw establishes that in no case shall any accessory building or structure be located closer than 3 meters or 10 feet as established in section 7.2.33. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit the following side yard setbacks for each of the 3 existing accessory structures. 0.3 meters or 1 foot for the gazebo, 1 meter or 3 feet for the chicken coop, and 0 meters for the doghouse. There was one piece of correspondence received from the adjacent resident to the south. The adjacent resident is concerned about a pathway leading to the proposed coach house as it's located along the south property line adjacent to this resident's property. The resident stated that 2 parking spaces have been created next to the proposed coach house, and this is spotted in close proximity to the adjacent property. The resident is requesting some further review and clarification regarding the pathway or driveway area and parking there in the rear yard. Regarding agency comments, there were no concerns from the GRCA, Region of Waterloo, or Township Engineering and Public Works Department. Staff recommends that all comments and correspondence received from members of the public and government agencies through the consultation process be returned to staff for a future report to the committee on the disposition of this matter. Staff will be considering matters including all comments and correspondence received, whether the development meets the criteria of the 4 tests, and further review of the proposed rear yard pathway driveway and the space associated off-street parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And as I saw, most of you did sign in. If you did not sign in and you want to be kept up to date on what's happening with these cases, please sign the sign-in sheet at the back, and we will keep you abreast of what's going on. Would the applicants like to speak with this? But not, sorry. Thank you. Is there any member of the public who wishes to make any comments or questions on this issue? Please come up to the microphone. Oh, go ahead. You do great.
Okay, so I live right next door. And our issue is the driveway they put at the side of the garage. In the site plan, they show that they were gonna do a walkway that's between the garage and the house. A walkway, but what they've done is they put in a driveway. A gravel driveway, and the cars go up and down, and then they made 2 parking spots already down by the outbuilding. We don't have an issue with the outbuilding. I mean, we live in the country. You know what I mean? Like same as a chicken coop and everything else. We don't have an issue with any of that, but we do with the driveway. Because it's noisy, they go up and down, and we're just don't think the driveway should be right at the side of our fence line with 2 parking spots right there as well.
Thank you, and we did receive your letter.
Okay, thank you.
Christine, are you aware of the driveway?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this? Seeing no one, councilors, questions or comments? Councilor Hoffman.
Just a quick question. The definition of a coach house, you park vehicles in there anyway, so I would assume there would naturally be a driveway to a coach house.
But it wasn't a coach house, it used to be just a small outdoor dog house. So it was.
Yes, but the application is for a coach house.
Yeah.
And this is time for the councilors to speak. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, so any other comments, councilors?
No.
Any other comments, Councilor Roman?
Madam Mayor, just for clarification, through Christina, the existing house directly adjacent, is there already a coach house there beside it? Looks like it would be sure.
Through Mayor Foxton to Council Roman, it's a garage right beside the house, and then there's just open space above. So there's no coach house there currently.
Councilor.
Christina, with that existing garage, is that garage already taller than the existing house? Because it looks like that's already taller. Was a variance already granted for that?
Through Mayor Foxton to Council Roman, since the property is zone 1, it is an accessory building, and there's no height restriction for an accessory building. But for a coach house, there is a height restriction. So that's why this one is requiring the variance.
Councilor Williams.
I'm not really confused with the site plan that seemed to show a driveway between. So I was really hoping that we could get an updated site plan that actually shows what their intent is. Because, yeah, that was very different from what the GRCA was looking at.
Through Mayor Foxton to Council Roman, I will be requesting an updated concept plan.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Can I now have a motion, please, Councilor Tilly?
No problem, trying to class number.
Number 33-2023.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Osmer, that PD report number 33-2023 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through the course consultation process be returned to staff for consideration in a future report to the committee upon the disposition of this matter.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Thank you. Do we have to wait? Okay. Report number PD 34-2023, A-07/23, 580 Piper Street. Is this yours today?
No.
Notice has been given to those in accordance with the plan. The Secretary Treasurer will report everyone who has commented on this application, attended, and or have registered with the Clerk's Division to attend this meeting this evening. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or convening future meetings. I'd like to introduce Christina Babilonia, Planet GIS technician, who will be presenting this application. Christina.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The following presentation is for minor variance application A-07/23 located at 580 Piper Street. Purpose of this meeting is to grant a recommendation for the committee's consideration of the merits of the application. The property is located east of the intersection of Piper Street and Trusser Road. Property has a lot frontage of 64.5 meters onto Piper Street and is 0.72 acres in size. The property consists of a one-story single detached dwelling, which is currently under construction, and an accessory building. Surrounding land uses are industrial, agricultural, and rural residential. The subject property is zoned Z1 agriculture with exemption 20.1.8 and is designated agricultural in the township official plan. The applicant proposes to facilitate the extension of the covered porch into the front yard setback of the property. The home is currently under construction. The original building plans included a front porch depth of 1.2 meters. The owner proposes to extend this porch an additional 1.7 meters into the front yard. This proposed extension will extend into the building line setback. As we can see in the concept plan on the right, the existing porch is highlighted in green, and the proposed extension is highlighted in orange. The photo on the left is of the front elevation of the principal dwelling that is currently under construction. The photo on the right is a view from Piper Street and was taken on July 31st. There have been no comments or concerns from any members of the public. There are no concerns from the POCA, the Region of Waterloo, the Township Fire Department, or the Township Engineering and Public Works Department. The building department will require review and confirmation that the setbacks from the extended porch to the septic tank or to septic bed comply with the Ontario Building Code, as the original building plans had met the minimum required setbacks. Planning staff are of the opinion that the requested variance meets the four tests of a minor variance as outlined by the Planning Act. The first test being that the proposed variance conforms with the general intent of the zoning bylaw. In this case, a residential dwelling is a permitted use in the Z1 agricultural zone. Number two, the variance conforms with the general intent of the official plan. The township's official plan regulates uses through the zoning bylaw, and the proposed development is in conformity with the intent of the zoning bylaw. Number three, if the proposed variance is desirable, the extension of the covered porch creates a more usable and functional space for the residents of the property, as the existing 1.2 meters is relatively small in depth. And lastly, if the proposed variance is minor in nature, there is no anticipated effect on adjacent properties or sight lines along Piper Street, and an additional 1.6 meters is relatively minimal. Planning staff recommend that minor variance application 80-07/23 for 580 Piper Street be approved, subject to the following condition: that the owner and applicant provide the requisite information to the satisfaction of the chief building official, that the minimum separation distance of 5 meters between the proposed septic system and the porch structure can be achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. I believe we have someone online. I would like to speak on this. Seeing none, councillors. Seeing none, can I have a motion, please?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Willoughby, that PE report number 34-2023 be received, and that minor variance application A-07-23 to permit a front yard setback of 14.4 meters from the street line to accommodate the proposed covered porch structure, subject to the following condition: that the owner applicant provide the requisite information to the satisfaction of the chief building official, that the minimum separation distance of 5 meters between the proposed septic system and the porch structure can be achieved.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next, we have report number PD 35-2023-A-0823 3936-3942 Old Beverly Road. Notice has been given to those in accordance with the Planning Act. Secretary Treasurer will report everyone who has comments on this application attended and will have registered in the clerk division to attend the meeting this evening. These individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meeting. Christina Blazanova, Planning and GIS Technician, will be presenting this application. Christina, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The following presentations for minor variance application A-08/23 located at 3936 and 3942 Old Beverly Road. The purpose of this meeting is to provide an overview of the proposal, to solicit comments and identify issues or matters to be assessed by staff. The property is located east of the intersection of Village Road and Old Beverly Road. This property has a lot frontage of 382 meters on Old Beverly Road and 60 hectares in size. The property consists of 2 single detached dwellings and an accessory barn building. Surrounding land uses are agricultural. The subject property is zoned Z1 agriculture and is designated rural area and protected countryside in the township official plan. The subject property consists of 2 residential dwellings. The applicant proposes to enlarge the dwelling municipally addressed as 3936 Old Beverly Road, which is circled with that red circle in the photo. As these dwellings both existed on the day of the passing of General Zoning Bylaw 689-83, they are considered to be non-conforming uses. Section 4.2 of the zoning bylaw contains regulations for the enlargement of non-conforming uses, which includes that a non-conforming use may be enlarged by a maximum of 25% of the total floor area of the building on the day of the passing of the zoning bylaw. The existing floor area of the residential building on the day of the passing of the bylaw was 161.5 meters squared, or approximately 1,738 square feet. The applicant is proposing the following enlargements: a basement addition of approximately 80.26 meters squared, a main floor addition of approximately 195.7 meters squared, which includes the proposed 3-car garage, and a second-story addition of 9.29 square meters. Generally, when calculating floor area, a basement and garage would not be included in the calculation. However, section 4.2B of the zoning bylaw does not exclude any portion of dwelling from being considered as part of the enlargement when it comes to enlarging the non-conforming use. As the basement addition and new garage or enlargements to the existing area, planning staff have included all of this in the overall enlargement calculation. So the total proposed enlargement of the existing residential building is approximately 285.25 square meters, which is an increase of approximately 123.75 meters squared, or roughly 176% above the existing floor area. As you can see in the photo on the screen, this is a floor plan for the basement. The area that's outlined in yellow is the existing area on the day of the passing of the bylaw. And the area outlined in blue is a proposed enlargement to the basement. The photo on the screen is now the main floor plan. This area outlined in yellow showing the existing area on the day of the passing of bylaw, and the area outlined in blue is a proposed enlargement to the main floor. As you can see on the right side is where the garage is shown. It makes up a considerable portion of this proposed enlargement. And lastly, there's a photo of the second floor plan. Or second story floor plan. This area again in yellow is the existing area on the day of the passing of the bylaw, and the area outlined in blue is the proposed enlargement to the second story. The owner is requesting the following minor variance from section 4.2.4b of General Zoning Bylaw 689-83. It permits the enlargement or extension of the existing residential building by not more than 25% of the total floor area of the building on the day of the passing of the bylaw. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit a total enlargement of 176%, or 123.75 meters squared for the residential building. So this is approximately an increase of 151%. This is a photo of the existing east elevation and the proposed east elevation. And the bottom photo is the existing and proposed south elevation of the dwelling. There have been no comments or concerns from any members of the public at this time. There are no concerns from the GRCA, Regional Waterview, or Township Fire Department. And planning staff are awaiting any additional comments from agencies and township departments. Staff recommends that all comments and correspondence received from members of the public and government agencies through the consultation process be returned to staff for a future report to the committee on the disposition of this matter. Staff will be considering matters included all comments and correspondence received and whether this development meets the criteria of the 4 tests of the minor variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Would the applicant like to say anything? Okay, and any comments from the public? It's going way too easy. Councilors. Can I have the motion, please? Lawson.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Billy, that PD report number 35-2023 be received. And then all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for considerations in a future report to the committee on the disposition of this matter.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Not many already. Report number PD dash 36-2023, B02/23, A-02/2023, and A-03/23, 8890 Piper Street. Notice has been given to those who have requested it. The secretary treasurer will report everyone who has commented on this application, attended and or have registered with the clerk division to attend the meeting this evening. These individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings. I'd like to introduce Christina Lazzaro. I bet you all know that name well. Planner GIS technician who will be presenting this application. Christina, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My last presentation is consent application B02/23 and minor variance applications A-02, A-02/23 and A-03/23 located at 88 and 90 Piper Street. A public meeting was held on May 29th, 2023. And the purpose of this meeting is to advance a recommendation for the committee's consideration on the merits of the application. The brief summary from the public meeting: the property is located east of the intersection of Piper Street and Walter Street. The property has a lot frontage of 23.8 meters onto Piper Street and is approximately 2,443 meters square in size. Property consists of 2 semi-detached dwellings and surrounding land uses are primarily residential. Property zone Z5 urban residential and zone Z12 open space is designated urban residential and auxiliary and open space in the township official plan. This property is also listed on the municipal heritage registry. As mentioned, the subject property consists of split zoning, including zones 5 and zone 12. White dash line in the figure on the right differentiates these two zone classifications. As per section 6.32.2I of general zoning bylaw, where a lot consists of more than one zone, each portion of the lot shall be considered a separate lot. Based upon this definition, the property has the following lot areas. Zone 5 is approximately 915 meters squared, and zone 12 is approximately 1,528 meters squared. The applicant proposes to sever this existing residential lot that consists of 2 semi-detached dwellings along the front wall to create 1 new residential lot and separate ownership of each semi-detached dwelling. The yellow dash line is in the photo indicates the proposed severance line, and the white dash line indicates the zone boundary. The proposed lot width is 12.28 meters for the retained lot and 11.8 meters for the severed lot. As shown in the previous slide, the property is defined as 2 separate lots and must meet the minimum lot requirements of each of those zone classifications. As per that previous definition, the proposed lot area is 464 meters for the retained lot and 451 meters for the severed lot. The applicant has simultaneously applied for 2 minor variance applications to accommodate the change in lot area, lot width, and side yard setback for both the retained and severed parcels. The applicant seeks the following 3 variances for each lot. Section 8.3.1 requires a minimum lot area of 1,000 square meters. The applicant requests a lot area of 464 meters squared for the retained lot and 451 meters squared for the severed lot. Section 2, section 8.3.2 requires a minimum lot width of 24 meters. The applicant requests a lot width of 12.28 meters for the retained lot and 11.8 meters for the severed lot. And lastly, section 8.3.3b requires a minimum side yard setback of 2.4 meters. The applicant requests a side yard setback of 0 meters, which would be along the common wall of the semi-detached dwellings. This is a view of the subject property from Piper Street. 90 Piper Street is shown on the left and 88 Piper Street is shown on the right. There have been no comments or concerns received from any members of the public. There are no concerns from the GRCA, Fire Department, or Engineering and Public Works. The Region of Waterloo requires the regional consent fee of $350 and the submission of a valid section 59 notice. The applicant Regarding building's previous comments, the applicant has submitted a building permit to address their comments from to address their comments. The comments from the Region of Waterloo and the Township Building Department will be included as conditions to provisional approval. Planning staff are of the opinion that the requested variances meet the four tests of the minor variance as outlined in the Planning Act. The first test being that the proposed variances conform with the general intent of the zoning bylaw. In this case, semi-detached dwellings are permitted use in a set 5 zone classification. Number 2, the variances conform with the general intent of the official plan. The township official plan regulates the uses through the township zoning bylaw, and the proposed development is in conformity with the intent of the zoning bylaw. Third, if the proposed variances are desirable, the property owners wish to create separate ownership of each semi-detached dwelling, so this will permit that. And lastly, if the proposed variances are minor in nature. Zoning bylaw does not currently contain provisions that address semi-detached dwellings of separate ownership. So the minor variance application is minor in nature that seeks to address a technical matter that the zoning bylaw doesn't currently account for. And there are no proposed changes to the existing semi-detached dwellings as they are located on the subject property. Staff is satisfied that the proposed application is appropriate, and staff's opinion is based on the following: that no major comments or concerns were received from external or internal agencies that would preclude the proposed consent from moving forward. The adjacent property owners were notified within 120-meter radius of the subject property, and no comments or concerns were received. The proposed lot configuration is compatible with the surrounding properties. The proposed severance will allow for separate ownership of each semi-detached unit. No new buildings or structures are proposed on the subject property, and comments received from the Region of Waterloo and Township Building Department will be addressed through the conditions of provisional approval to the consent application. Planning staff recommend that consent application B-02/23 and minor variance applications A-02/23 and A-03/23 for 88 and 90 Piper Street be approved, subject to the conditions listed in the recommendation section of a PD report 36/2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Would anyone like to speak on this issue? You're a very good audience. Would any member of council wish to make any questions or comments? Seeing none, council will can read the motion.
Myself and by Councilor Williams, that P report number 36/2023 be received. That consent application B-0223 be requested to sever the property at 88 and 90 Piper Street to create one new residential lot of approximately 11.8 meters of frontage on Piper Street, with the corresponding lot area of 1,224 meters squared inside to be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, the reference plan is prepared by Ontario Land Surveyor, illustrating the new proposed lot lines to be prepared to satisfaction of the township of North Dumfries. 2, that the owner pays the township any outstanding taxes in full on the property. 3, the payment of $328 as a township administration fee. 4, the owner applicant submits the Regional Waterloo consent review fee of $300 required to final approval. 5, that prior to final approval, the owner applicant submit a valid section 59 notice under the authority of the region's source protection plans to satisfaction of Regional Waterloo. 6, that minor variant application is filed number A-0223 and A-0323. The proposed severed and retained lots be approved to recognize lot areas, lot widths, and side yard setbacks. 7, building permit to be issued and construction of approved party wall, required fire separation to be completed to the satisfaction of the township's building department. 8, that the above conditions must be fulfilled. The document for conveyance certificate of consent be completed by the Secretary Treasurer of the Council within 2 years of the date of written decision pursuant to section 5341 of the Planning Act, otherwise the approval shall lapse. And that the minor variance application A-0223 being requested to permit a minimum lot area of 464 meters squared, a minimum lot width of 12.28 meters, and minimum side yard setback of 0 meters along the common wall with both retained lot be approved, subject to the following condition: that consent application B-0223 is approved. And that minor variance application A-0323 being requested to permit a minimum lot area of 451 meters squared, a minimum lot width of 11.8 meters, and minimum side yard setback of 0 meters along the common wall of the proposed lot be approved, subject to the following condition: the consent application B 0223 is approved.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. You got Council Osmer, thank you.
Three.
Council Wilson, can I have a motion, please?
Moved by myself, seconded by Council Osmer, that pursuant to the Planning Act, the Committee of Adjustment be adjourned at 7:35 p.m. and the council meeting be called back to order.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. We're now going into the public planning meeting. Report number is 7.1, report number PD 32-2023, proposed zoning bylaw amendment ZC-02/23 and proposed draft plan of condominium file number 30CDM-23301 Mitchell Street. Notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The clerk will record everyone who has commented on this application, attended and or have registered with the clerk's division to attend the meeting this evening. Those individuals will be notified of the decision for the convening of future meetings. Please sign the sign-in sheet at the back of the room if you would like to be notified. I'd like to introduce Andrew McKinley, Chief Administrative Officer for this present, to present the application. CEO McKinley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The public meeting before us this evening is dealing with two concurrent integrated planning act applications. One is the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, file number ZC-2-23, and the proposed draft plan of condominium, file number 30CDM-23301. The purpose of the statutory public meeting this evening is to provide an overview of proposed development. We're here to solicit comments from interested members of the public, government agencies, and other stakeholders that could be reflected in a future follow-up report to council on the merit of the two planning applications, and to identify issues or matters to be assessed by staff as part of the consideration of the subject of the proposal that would be accounted for in the future report to council. So I'll be this evening touching upon the background and property location, the applicable highlights of planning policies and regulations, an overview of the draft plan of condominium and zoning applications, and next steps. Subject property is located on Mitchell Street, south of Field Street. And so on the screen, you can see the red outlined parcel off of Mitchell Street, south of Field Street. Property is approximately 1.64 acres in area, with a corresponding 66 feet of frontage on Mitchell Street. As can be seen by the property outlined in the red box, the property has an irregular shape and configuration. The property itself is framed in all directions by established residential lots and is located within a mature or stable neighborhood setting. So just to provide some context, this is Mitchell Street at this location, and we can see adjacent the property frontage located here. To the west, we have Swan Street and the residential lots that front onto the east side of Swan Street There are a number of lots in this location that back onto the proposed development parcel. To the south of the subject lands, we have Watson Crescent and the Enbridge high pressure pipeline. And you can see these residential lots that front on the north side of Watson Crescent back onto the subject lands. And then on Mitchell Street itself, and this would be the south portion of Mitchell Street, we have a series of residential lots that either flank or back onto the subject lands. There is presently municipal water and sanitary services across the property frontage on Mitchell Street. The next photo is just taken from the sidewalk on the north side of Mitchell Street, looking at, from a panoramic perspective, the property frontage. And as you can see, it's an open area with a little bit of a gravel entry point off of Mitchell Street. Moving into the property itself, this is looking southerly from Mitchell Street into the interior of the property. And then the second or the bottom photo, I'm now inside the property and I'm looking to the east and a broader depth of the interior of the property. As you can see from this aerial photo, at Mitchell Street itself, it's generally flat orientation off of Mitchell Street. And then as you can see from the bottom picture, we have mature trees flanking both the north and south sides of the property adjacent to those established neighbors, residential properties. And you can see moving from west to east, there is a slight incline in the elevation of the property. So the property generally orients from a grade perspective from east to west, and then a general slope at the south limits, sorry, of the west limits of the property oriented toward Mitchell Street itself. Looking at the context of provincial policies and associated regulations, we're focusing initially on the provincial policy statement of here 2020. There are a series of policies within the provincial directive that support growth and development within a settlement area, new development adjacent to existing built-up areas, and discussions about compact form and the provision of a range and mix of housing options and densities to meet both current and future residents. Still looking at the provincial level, we have a places to grow growth plan for the greater Golden Horseshoe area from here in 2019. There are policy directives that tell us to look at developing complete communities, incorporating a mix of household sizes, incomes, density, and diversity in the overall housing stock. The regional official plan from here 2015 that was amended by Regional Official Plan Amendment number 6. So ROFA 6 was adopted by Regional Council in August of 2022 and received approval from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing with amendments approximately 3 months ago. The subject lands in the Regional Official Plan map 3E. The subject lands are located within the Ayr urban area. And further, the Regional Official Plan identifies the subject land within the established built-up area of urban Ayr. Policy 2D1 provides direction to both regional and area planning staff that when we're looking for development occurring in this area, that is planned and developed in a manner that contributes to the creation of complete communities, and that looking at development patterns, densities, and appropriate mix of land uses to support walking, cycling, and the use of transit, that we respect and protect natural environment, surface and groundwater resources, and of equal importance, respects the scale, physical character, and context of established neighborhoods in areas where reurbanization is planned to occur. On the right is an extract from the township's official plan. The dark purple represents the built-up area of the Village of Air. And that's where we are to focus redevelopment and intensification. And this property is within the built-up area of the community of Air. Within the built-up area, we're looking at a mix of residential classifications, and residential uses are promoted within this area. And development is to occur on the basis of urban services, that being municipal water and sanitary sewers. Outlined in green is the proposed development parcel itself. And this property, this block, this 1.66 acre block is zoned Z4A urban residential, and the zone classification in its present configuration applicable to the developed parcel matches the dominant residential zone that's found on Mitchell and Field Street that flank the development parcel. A single detached dwelling and ancillary uses are permitted activities within the Z4A urban residential zone classification. This slide illustrates the proposed draft plan of vacant condominium. Just to orient everybody on the screen, this is Mitchell Street, where the frontage at this location being approximately 66 feet or 20 meters in width is situated. This is the boundary of the proposed development block. So these are the lots on Mitchell Street that back onto the proposed development, and then located at this location and this location to the south and west would be the existing residential fabric on Swan Street and Watson Crescent that back onto the proposed development parcel. We have a proposed internal private road, which in time will be a common element within the future plan of condominium corporation. It provides direct access to each of the proposed 4 building lots that will be freehold in title, and access by a driveway for each of these lots would come off that private internal access drive that would then connect to Mitchell Street. The proposed lots vary in size between 13,315 square feet, the smallest lot being lot 1 in this location, and the largest lot being located the eastern portion of the property being approximately 17,319 square feet. The applicant has indicated that one of the 4 potential freehold lots may be used as a temporary guest house. As consistent with a plan of condominium, there will be common elements that would support the proposed plan of condominium, and those would be the private internal access drive. Any community areas, so we have the land flanks with the proposed internal access at this location, which might include landscaped areas. And all the underground services, so the water and sanitary sewer, as well as any storm drainage components or landscaping that may flank this internal road, would all be part of that common element owned by the condominium corporation and designed to service the proposed 4 lots. Continue on with the plan of subdivision, as I previously mentioned, development is proposed to be serviced by the municipal water and sanitary sewer system, presently on Mitchell Street across the property frontage. Once the water and sanitary sewer cross into the private property, it actually becomes plumbing infrastructure administered under the Ontario Building Code. And that system, water, sanitary, and storm, actually become part of the common elements to be owned and maintained by the condominium corporation as part of the common element component. As I mentioned previously, there is a single access from Mitchell Street into the development itself. That future access drive that provides the connectivity to each of the 4 proposed lots will be designated as a fire route under the Ontario Building Code. And that means there are certain restrictions in terms of the narrowness of the road itself, as well as a designation bylaw to identify a fire route. So no parking is actually permitted on that internal access road, because then you cannot meet the minimum requirements of 6 meters of free clearance for emergency vehicles to access the interior lots. And once again, that access road will be one of the common elements maintained by the future condominium corporation. As it relates to stormwater management and overland flow of surface water, it's proposed to be directed to the Mitchell Street network at this location. And as I mentioned previously, generally speaking, the gradient of the existing property, starting at lot 4, migrates gently to the southwest. And then as we hit this location here, the property naturally grades toward Mitchell Street. Focusing on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment itself. Once again, the subject property is outlined in the green property perimeter in the 1.66 acre area. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is designed to implement the proposed draft plan of condominium. The applicant is proposing to maintain the Z4A urban residential classification. However, site-specific exemption provisions will be applied to recognize and account for the fact that development is occurring within a plan of condominium with frontage onto a private internal condominium road. And as such, we need to acknowledge and identify that development is occurring within that private internal condominium road. The setbacks, rather than being setbacks for a public highway, would be from the proposed internal condominium road. And we would have to adjust and account for the setback of each of those 4 freehold residential lots as it relates to side yard setbacks and rear yard setbacks. So that would be the separation between the proposed dwelling units, but also the relationship in terms of setbacks in the rear yard as it relates to the properties that flank it on Swan Street and Watts Crescent. We would also be dealing with the height of buildings, recognizing that once again, these are proposed single detached residences. But we'd also be focusing on the height of accessory buildings and the setback from future freehold lots for the accessory structures. And then finally, the provision of off-street parking. So there could be a combination of parking required within each of the 4 freehold lots and overflow parking, which would have to be then part of the common elements that would be maintained in the longer term by the condominium corporation. The intent is that all parking required to accommodate the proposed 4 lots, including the occupants as well as any visitors to 1 or more of the residential lots, would not be required to overflow onto Mitchell Street. There has been a series of correspondence received leading into tonight's meeting, and part of the early report circulated with the agenda. That correspondence was included in the council package. All members of council have all the correspondence, including agency comments that have been received to date. Each of those pieces of correspondence received tonight or in the days to follow would be included in that future report to council, along with the response in terms of clarification or follow up as to 1 or more of the comments or concerns that have been previously raised. Staff have quickly summarized as part of tonight's presentation the general nature of the comments received from members of the public to date. There was information regarding what is the type and size of the dwellings, as well as the number of stories of those future residences. There's a comment that the survey stakes have been removed from the subject property and is requesting that they be back. Just so that everyone's aware, it is against the law to remove an Ontario Land Surveyor iron bar. There is actually a fine under the Registry Act for that, so have to make sure those survey bars are there and they're meant to be permanent by their nature. A request that mature trees that exist along the perimeter of the property, if you recall, there were mature trees in terms of coniferous spruce trees along the it could be the north property line, plus the rear yards of those residences that frame Mitchell Street. And there was a combination of both coniferous and deciduous trees on the south property line that would be backing onto the properties on both Watson Crescent and Swan Street. The ask was that those trees be protected, as they do provide an element of privacy between the established residential properties and the emerging urban lots that are being proposed as part of this development application. There was an ask that fencing be considered along the rear lot lines of the Swan Street properties and the planting of trees at the rear of lots 1 to 4 adjacent Swan Street and Watson Crescent property lines. There was an ask about clarification relating to waste management practices deployed on site. Here we're talking about garbage and recycling collection. We're talking about waste management just to provide that clarity. And assurance that the future grading of the proposed lots does not change. The concern was that changing grading profile may draw then surface water onto the established residential lots that frame the subject lands. So the ask was that it be contained within the development and then properly directed to the appropriate urban storm sewer system. So staff have identified in terms of next steps. There will be a future report to Township Council on the merits of the 2 planning act applications, that being both the zoning bylaw amendment as well as the draft plan of condominium. And as part of that future report to Township Council, obviously any comments that we receive, whether it be from members of the public prior to tonight's meeting, coming out of tonight's meeting, or correspondence that might be received in the next few weeks, all those comments and correspondence will be incorporated into that follow-up report, along with the appropriate response in that staff report, addressing whatever those comments may be. We'll be looking at the proposed development and its alignment with matters of provincial interest. We'll be commenting on whether or not the proposed development conforms to both the policy and designation intents contained in both the township and the regional official plans. Looking at the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Is the proposed zone classification suitable for the subject lands and properly identify the hierarchy of residential units proposed here? What site-specific provisions are required to address the future intended use of the subject lands? And is it necessary to provide a definition of what constitutes a temporary guest house? Looking now more at the macro, so now we're looking at actually the arrangement of the future urbanization of the property. So think about transitions between the proposed development and relationship to the residential lots that flank it. Whether we're talking about Mitchell Street, Watson Crescent, or Swan Street. So we'll be looking at in the context of density, scale, height, massing of the proposed residential uses, their visual impact, building setbacks, including the side yards for both the principal residence and any accessory structures that might be built in time on 1 or more of the freehold lots. The shape and configuration of the blocks, the proposed freehold lots, and how this potentially affects the mix and arrangement of future buildings, parking areas, site circulation, and amenity areas. Both the amenity areas within the context of the individual freehold lots, but also anything that might form part of that common element being maintained by the future condominium corporation. The provision of off-street parking, Traffic circulation to the future lots, including the fire route requirements and the ability of service vehicles to service the development. And here I flag specifically waste management collection, because the region does have specific requirements in terms of accessing private roads that serve condominium developments, both in the context of there's a unit yield that once over 8 units, they will not access a planned condominium. But if they are to access planned condominium, then they have certain requirements in terms of corridors of travel and turning radii for their vehicles. They will not back out of a private condominium road. And then snow removal is obvious in terms of where is snow storage to occur, the windrows that would be created as part of snow removal, and similar types of elements associated with the Four Seasons activities associated with that future internal road. Obviously, we're going to be looking at the alignment of the proposed internal road and setback from the rear lot on Mitchell Street. We're looking at what is the appropriate buffer and setback required to provide not only a spatial separation in the context of the rear yards of those Mitchell Street residences, but also to protect the mature trees that are present along the common lot line. Stormwater management and the ability to accommodate both the minor and major systems. And so what the minor system is, generally we capture in storm sewers up to the 5-year storm. And the major storm is anything larger than that, which generally we try and move within the curves of an urban road and a path of travel to the appropriate downstream location for those more major storm events. And obviously the overall intent is through grading and the minor major storm system that we control the overland flow and stormwater created in the urbanization of the property. We're looking at quality and quantity control measures so that we have the appropriate discharge into the Mitchell Street storm sewer without unnecessarily surcharging the existing storm sewer pipe that is within the Mitchell Street system. The internal private road, future condominium road, we're obviously looking at road design and profile, including whether there's a need for internal sidewalk and the provision of street lighting. Obviously, we're in an established residential neighborhood, and so we're looking at what that edge treatment is on Mitchell Street near the entry road where it intersects with Mitchell Street to maintain that rhythm along Mitchell Street. And then how the region's policy as it relates to waste management collection and the use of common areas can be achieved as part of the overall land budget and assignment of parcels between private ownership and what might be a common element to be maintained by a future condominium corporation. So, Madam Mayor, members of council, the recommendation, consideration of tonight's staff report and presentation is that all comments and correspondence received from members of the public, government agencies and township departments through the consultation process be returned to staff, and that future report to council on this position of this matter be prepared. And so at the back of the room, there is a sign-in sheet. Anyone who hasn't signed the sheet and wishes to be notified of any future return report to the township council on this matter, if you please complete that sign-in sheet, you'll be notified of any future reports back to township council on this matter.
Thank you, Sam, thank you, Lesson. You have 5 minutes.
Let's be back, and Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Sam Head. I'm with the firm of Private Smith & Head Planning Consultants. Assisting on. I'm here representing Sharon Joanna. She purchased this property just a while ago. Her intention is to develop it for 4 large single-family homes. We don't have sufficient frontage on the street to create the regular lots that you see on Field Street and Mission Street. So we're looking at this condominium proposal to allow us to develop the property. Each of these lots will have a large home 1.5, 2 stories, up to about 4,000 square feet. Each lot will be professionally landscaped with the larger house. And so we're looking at landscaping the access driveway into the property, like a common element, putting more planting in there. You're probably wondering why this frontage was 20 meters, which left over from a proposed cul-de-sac subdivision many, many years ago. When the Mitchell Street was developed, the properties that back onto this property off of Swan Street were looked at as a possible cul-de-sac. That's why the 20 meters frontage is there today was the cul-de-sac going in. Back in the day, the property owners along Mitchell Street and Swan Street didn't want to participate in that proposed development. That's why we have the situation we have today. So we're dealing with a piece of property that's an infilling property and will be developed 4 lots only. There are no detailed building plans available this time, but they will be provided in due course. The stormwater management plan is submitted to the township as well to deal with the stormwater management from the property. If you know the corner of Swan and Mitchell, you'll see a large swim pond there, a stormwater management pond. That was built for the subdivision that's there today. And it was a design and accommodating in size to take the stormwater management from this property down Mitchell Street, swim pond. At the entrance to this property, there's the water line, there's the sanitary line, there's the storm sewer catch basin. So the drainage from the access driveway will go down to the street and down to the swim pond. And we've submitted engineering reports, we've submitted landscaping plans, we've submitted all kinds of detailed other reports. I understand the garbage pickup will be taken down to the curb, as you would for any regular house. It's under the threshold for the region for garbage pickup internally. So they'll pick bins and whatever down to the street like anybody else on that street would do. I understand there's a number of questions from the area residents. We'll be looking at a detailed grading drainage plan. We submitted the preliminary one now, we'll look at more details. We'll be looking at more trees as well, and looking at the issue of fencing. And there's a whole bunch of other issues raised by the region and the township department, so we will address those in our follow-up submission to the township. If there's any questions that I can answer now to council or to the public that are attending, we have to answer.
Thank you. We'll open it now to the public. Is Sarah Rivers here? Is she virtually? No. Dorothy and Craig Raydoff?
I'm here, but don't want to speak right now.
Okay. Timothy and Catherine Stofford? Do you want to speak? Go ahead, come up to the microphone, please.
Madam Mayor and Council, my name is Tim Stoffer. I'm property owner of a budding property, and I submitted questions and comments that were included in the agenda. So I'm here to say, is there any clarification required for any of the questions? It looks like the Burnside consultants have addressed a lot of them, as well as the region for waste management. Things that need to be addressed in the future plan is fencing and landscaping, and if the grading plan would change as a budding property owner.
Okay, you've signed up.
I signed up.
Great, thanks for me.
Any clarification or questions for what I've submitted?
Not that I'm aware of. No, thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you.
Carolyn and Wally Beckler. Let's see. Go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to be heard. We reside at 1169 Swan Street, so our property abuts the proposed development area. I've heard several references to 3 items which are important to us tonight: surface drainage, tree protection, and potentially fencing. The drainage condition of that property for the past 30+ years has not been adequate. We currently do experience some excess runoff from that property, So going forward, our expectation is, of course, that the property will control water internally, as suggested. The other item, and I have heard some references as well to this, in that the proposed amendments, and I am subject to your correction on this, but that the proposed zone change amendments, the property as revised would still be conforming to zone Z4A. So one question I ask, is that a correct statement? And in particular, a fear might be that these two amendments go forward, and there was further reference to a story and a half or two-story dwellings. There is reference to 4 single detached dwellings, but the specific clarification to that item and the fear related to it was that when in fact the building permit would go forward, that we're looking at a 3-story multi-unit structures. So I guess if I try and summarize that, we're looking for assurances that in fact we are going to see potentially someday 1.5 or 2-story dwellings.
Fiona Crew, can you clarify, please?
So Madam Mayor, the Z4A classification, which is the dominant zone classification applicable to the broader Mitchell Fields Avenue area, is for single detached homes. That is what is proposed here. Now, as of right, because of the changes brought forward recently by the province of Ontario, up to 3 dwelling units is permitted in any urban area, any urban property. So that's not unique to this kind of condominium property, it's any property in terms of ancillary dwelling units. So in theory, you can have 2 or 3 accessory dwellings on the property in addition to the principal residence. That's applicable to any urban lot in urban area. But it doesn't allow townhouses or low-rise apartments or something similar to that. So it'd be in the form of single attached home, but you could have a detached structure that has ancillary residential that's allowed as of right in the plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? No, you should have wanted to, if you want to come out of the mic.
Yeah, sure. I got several questions actually. My name is Darrell Sam. I live at 204 Mitchell Street. One question I have now, well, I guess for them as well, this is built as 4 condominiums is what they're being called, but he's calling it 4 single house dwellings. You're now saying that you can put 3 units on each property, so we're talking about 12 units is what's going to be passed here, not 4, correct?
See over here?
No, the application is for 4 single detached lots in a planned condominium. What I said was the province of Ontario in November of 2022 amended the Planning Act to allow on any residential lot in an urban area. So that could be a home on Mitchell Street or on Piper Street. Wherever allows up to 2 additional residential units that are ancillary to either a single or a semi or a townhouse dwelling.
So if this plan gets approved, there's 4 individual lots, so in theory, there could be 2 additional per lot, which brings us to 12 dwellings in this property.
Is it be permitted as of right based on provincial regulations?
So I think that's something you guys have to consider when you're going to approve. You're not approving 4 lots, as Pete suggests, you're approving the opportunity for 12, correct? In provincial law. with the
In
change.
provincial law, but then we have regulatory standards of which they have to follow by. If you build a big house, you can't fit 2 other houses on it.
So we do have minimum or maximum square footage so that they truly are deemed to be ancillary to the principal residence. So in other words, the dominant activity is the principal single detached residence. And like I said, it could be a basement apartment. It could be a loft, on the 2nd floor of a detached garage, as an example.
So the policy came in with the township years ago that if you have a lot. And a lot of people use it for the aging parents. So you want to put a granny lot or something on your property. You can do that. Now the province has said you can go on to two. But if you were here for one of the other applications where we said it can only be 40% of the principal resident. So those things are within our laws, so that protects the housing and growth. So we don't want anybody taking their land and shoving 3 or 4 houses on it. But we do want for accessory.
I understand, but did I not hear you say 4,000 foot houses being proposed on that?
So
So 40% of 4,000 square feet is still a large unit,
he probably wouldn't have the land mass to cover. it.
probably, but
Yeah.
depending what they do, that those proposals can change after the approval that you guys give them, and then we're dealing
No,
with
you
it.
can't change after the approval. You give an approval and he can't make changes.
Once this goes in, then, but in this application, I don't see anything about 4,000 square feet. I don't see anything about square footage of houses.
That's why this is coming back, so staff can get clarification, we can get it down as we can find.
Okay. And the second part, you had mentioned the grading and the slope of the property, and said the gradual slope towards the laneway that drives the entrance up Mitchell Street. I bought that entrance 3 properties down. And I get runoff from the property, I'm at 204 Mitchell Street, from the property now. They've been digging back there for a couple of weeks now, like, there's probably no oil. And the dust comes up, but in the spring, the runoff comes down. It's not a gradual runoff to the property on Mitchell. It comes down a fair bit, a little bit less now that Doug Hill, but it's not a gradual runoff. And one of my biggest concerns, I suppose, is this laneway that's proposed. The landscaping strip is 2 meters wide between my property line and this proposed laneway here. There's large mature trees there that are gonna have to come down.
That's why we've been,
When you take away those large mature trees, the groundwater runoff becomes even greater because there's nothing to absorb the runoff. And when they start plowing and salting these lands, the salt, I know what's gonna happen, it's gonna be coming right into my backyard and into my basement.
and that's why we've indicated, you've got to look at how do we protect those mature trees, because they do form a valuable element for both the established neighborhood as well as it would create some value for those future residential lots as well. And the road configuration right now, it shows the laneway and rear lot wall of those small, Mitchell Street residences. Well, then those mature trees I mentioned a moment ago would have to be removed.
Exactly.
So that's why we challenge our comments that we're coming back on our follow-up. Make sure that that road is properly positioned. So there's a whole series of things that have to be overlaid. One will be the grading profile and the stormwater management scheme, because that hasn't been determined yet. The road access, what does that road access have to look like? Because fire department and waste management have to be satisfied as to their ability to get in there. What does off-street parking look like? There are a whole series of factors that today we don't have the answers for, but have to be reflected in that future report. And that road configuration that you see could be shifted to account for one or more of those factors.
Well, I would hope it would have to be, right?
So your time's up, I just want to say that our staff, no, I just want to say that our staff is going to watch the meeting as well. And we're taking down the notes, we'll be looking at the product as well.
I'm out of time, but my concern is what you guys are describing is with the grade, not what's in actuality with what I see in my backyard, staring at what's gonna be there. And we're talking about 4,000 square foot houses, will be towering over top of my backyard, staring into my bedroom window, and the water just pouring down the hill.
So staff will look into all of that, and that's why this is not.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep us on it.
Well, I will.
Thank you. Any other councillors, anyone wish to speak? Would you like to speak, sir? Go ahead.
Mayor, my name is Robert Mancha. I live at 2 Mitchell Street. And I would like to second some of the concerns about stormwater management. I know that the properties to the east of the driveway yours, Karen's, they've already experienced, I know with some of the grading that's gone on there in the past, that's got nothing to do with the current development, but the previous grading that's gone on in the past has created some site conditions that has resulted, I know your basement was flooded. So those, the properties to the east of the driveway drop in elevation to where the current roadway is going to propose to go in. So I'm not convinced, I'm in construction, I'm not convinced just simple landscaping will address the stormwater requirements at those property lines. I suspect it's going to require some kind of a retaining wall system, something with a bit more. So I guess the question I have is, do we get to see the site service or the site plan? Do we get to review this as neighbors? Do we get to review the site plan proposal?
So Madam Mayor, typically dealing with, whether we're talking about a plan of condominium in this context or a similar plan of subdivision, there are conditions to draft plan approval. And the council and the region concur, and those become requirements that the owner must undertake before they can actually register to create, in this case, the private internal roadblock, as well as the 4 freehold lots. And there's a subdivision agreement, or this place a condominium agreement between the township and the developer that creates those detailed drawings and the checks and balances in terms of that future construction and what that road profile looks like, how the stormwater scheme is to be designed. Securities held by the township to make sure that the works, however they may unfold, are properly undertaken as part of the urbanization of the property. So typically at this stage, it's more at a macro level, but there would be requirements for those detailed engineering drawings that are stamped by a professional engineer or an Ontario landscape architect, as the case may be. They're then reviewed by our peer review consultant, which is RJ Burnside, to make sure that they're consistent with accepted municipal standards for engineering design. And then they become scheduled to that legal agreement, which is then registered on the title of the developed parcel, along with the posting of those financial securities.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the process, I guess. I just seen firsthand how sometimes the process fails, and that's a concern that let's say that we have. The guest house. I'm a little fuzzy on what the purpose or the use of the guest house would be. How big is the guest house? And what is it going to be used for?
Don't look like a regular house.
How many square feet?
I don't know that. The intent is to build 3 houses, one for Sharon, one for her other child, and one for the other child. And the guest house is a temporary thing, the investment right now. And it'll probably end up as a final single family house down the road. But it's all the
Sam, can you
families.
go to the microphone so people can hear what you're saying?
It's a family thing. Sharon wants to build a new house, move from Blair to here. And she wants to build 2 houses for her 2 kids, have this guest house as a 4th house in the future. And the size hasn't been finalized yet. We're still trying to get through this process as to whether we're going to get approved or not. And that was, and you said, we'll be providing detailed plans for the grading, drainage, and so on. You have to look at this as 4 single family houses, and if it was on our street by itself, you would look at the landscaping, the house, the driveway. And that's what will happen here. It's going to be 4 individual properties, all landscape, a new house, driveway going into the access. The drainage will be controlled on site. So our engineers have worked about grading and drainage plan preliminary. I see from your engineer, we need to go back and do some work on that. But we're not going to try and flood his property and the property next over, we're going to try and correct that problem. And someone went in there recently and removed a bunch of the old materials that were stockpiled in the back. That's where the trucks there. And that was put there by the previous owner. We're not planning to knock down any trees. We're planning to add more trees, not destroy trees, because they're a valuable asset to any single family owner, any subdivision. So we're looking at adding more landscaping, protecting the trees. Well, this is not a cheap process. These are $1 million plus one for this period. So it's not to be done on cheap. Was that answer your question?
Yeah, so it's gonna be 4 dwellings. And then the last question, and I don't know what can be done about this, but as you identified, it is a built-up neighborhood, established built-up neighborhood, and now we're gonna get smacked into construction, which is gonna introduce a lot of. Are there any bylaw requirements that the contractors have to abide by to try and contain some of the dirt and mud that we're gonna see kind of trips down Mitchell Street? Which is gonna be pretty. I know it was pretty bad last time.
Madam Mayor, yes, there are a series of mechanisms. One will be the erosion cessation control. So if there was a small event, there's not migration of loose soil material leaving the boundaries of the property, either onto Mitchell Street or on the worst case scenario onto adjacent private lots. As it relates to mud tracking dust, the reality is there will be obviously site servicing, the construction of the future homes, and depending on the time of the year, there will be mud tracking and the like. Typically, through the subdivision agreement, put an onus on the developer to keep the streets clear of mud and dirt caused by vehicles entering and exiting the site. And if notice they do not undertake that cleaning of the road, then the township will access the cash held on hand, and then we'll deploy our contractor to take the street sweeping. Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on up to the mic.
Oh, sorry. Please. Now I know what-
So I went back onto the property, further back now to Watson Crescent, and there's some very established trees that, and obviously there's been work happening into the property as of late. And, one I'd like to address is the construction when we have an at 7:30 on Sunday morning. It's been happening, and hopefully it's not a common practice anymore. And two, there have been a couple of very large established trees, and who's checking the integrity of when they do grade the property, and making sure that those trees are going to be safe and not fall down, because they will obviously come into our property because of the way the gradient goes onto our properties. And if it does, who is responsible? That's.
So now we don't have it.
So Madam Mayor, township does have a noise bylaw. Township has a noise bylaw that regulates the hours of operation for construction related activity, which is Monday to Saturday, 7 to 7. And no construction allowed on Sundays or statutory holidays. So if you're witnessing construction related activity and it's occurring on Sunday or on the staff holiday or after 7 p.m. in the evenings, you call the township's bylaw enforcement division, and they're on shift, they will attend the property and address the issue of non-compliance with the bylaw. As it relates to the mature trees, and we talked a little bit about the mature trees that ring the subject lands. They are fairly large in their size and diameter. They each will have different types of root sizes and root balls, depending upon the nature of the tree species, as well as the size and maturity of those trees. Generally, there's a requirement as part of those detailed engineering and landscape drawings I mentioned as scheduled to that future subdivision agreement. We asked for identification based on the grading servicing plan. What trees will be impacted, what trees are to be protected, what would be appropriate called tree protection zone. And for those trees that are to be maintained for the longer term, there's a fencing detail that's put up as a temporary feature to protect the integrity of those tree roots or the tree itself, so that it's not damaged by earthworks or inadvertent operator swinging bucket or something similar that would damage or harm the tree to be protected. Not seeing detailed drawings as we speak, I can't speak to what trees might be impacted. But that is generally the observation, so they would be retaining arborists and the landscape architect that will be identifying that removal and protection plan. It would be reviewed by our consultant from RJ Burnside. They also have certified arborists as well as landscape architects. That would be looking at how to protect the integrity of those root systems, the tree stock themselves, so that once the development is finished, obviously there's a healthy regime to allow those trees to be successful. Township has a similar infill development. Now, this was a plan of subdivision where there was a public highway, but it was an infill within an established neighborhood that was framed on 3 sides by existing homes in the Nith Valley on the other side. And there were significant mature trees present there. And what we actually did is we put conservation easements on those mature trees. So not only were they protected as part of the initial construction, think of site servicing and the home building, those conservation easements carried after the subdivision soon, and those trees can't be removed without a written authorization of the township. So the part of the private lot, but the protection of those trees and the health and vitality of those trees was enshrined, registered on title through a conservation easement held by the township.
Thanks. And one last question I forgot, actually. I just would like to go on the record and state too, that as we are back onto Mitchell Crescent and the pipeline is there, just ensuring that the integrity of the soil and everything is good and not affecting any of that movement. We don't want anything to happen. As well as I would like to also second whoever said the comment of, could we look at having a fence to maybe help and or retain wall to sort of keep it around where it should be.
Thank you. And also, would you, but don't forget it, if you hear them working, it should be, it's bylaw at North Dunkeys from CA. Sir, you're next.
Okay, Madam Mayor, Council. I appreciate being involved in this process because I came from Kitchener 10 years ago and this exact same thing happened. And they built a property beside me. There's police there all the time. I have water from my basement. It's horrible. So we found this beautiful town. We moved here. Actually, when I moved here, when I was looking at moving here, I went to the township office, Sprague's, and I met this very lovely lady who was going to vote for her for mayor. So, and we love it here. So anyways, I know there's progress. I know people have to do something there. I understand that, but it was mentioned it's a very slight grade to this property. I walk by there. It is a long slight grade. It's probably 20 feet above the street level. I'm on the southeast corner of that property. So I'm on lots. There's a huge hill there. So this property is going to be at the top of this. It's probably the highest property in the area. And it's going to look out over Watson Hilltop. It's going to be obtrusive, really, to us. And we've had all this privacy. So it kind of sucks. Maybe one. Next thing is, I had the survey. The reason I went to the township office before I moved here, I had the survey and it showed that my chain link fence is actually 10 feet on my property. So I'd like that to be reviewed as well. What are the stakes that you pulled out? Is there something off about that?
Okay, so don't forget to come to the township and talk to staff about that, so we can deal with that issue with regards to the events.
Sure.
Also, for everyone here, we don't want you to have change drawings. You know why? We're gonna hear about it, and we're gonna hear about it again and again and again. We want it done right. Okay, we're proud of our community. And we want to stay proud of our community. Now this sounds, and what Mr. Head says, it sounds great. But there's already been issues with drainage there, so I need my staff to look into that. If we can correct this all the way down, really appreciate it. I'd like you fence that. I would like no noise at once for you people, but I don't know if that's truly realistic in a building zone. From what it sounds like a family review. Okay, so CO McNeely's on top of it. He's gonna make sure the trees are protected, we'll talk about things, we'll talk about the drainage, but we want to correct that drainage for sure. So anyone else? I saw another gentleman up to speak. Oh, sir, can I get your name again?
Oh, sorry, it's Jason Dodger, and I'm gonna change myself to that beautiful maple at the top of the hill, so.
Can you call me?
Yeah, it's 29 lots. Thank you.
Let's not forget, just a point of clarification from the resident to Ken. Yeah, the PAO, sort of willing, if we will get access to the final site plan, we'll have to that question.
We're still several months away from that, because as I said, that's typically conditions of draft approval. I don't know how quickly the proponent. Once conditions of draft plan approval are adopted, how quickly we'll actually take up in terms of addressing more detailed drawings. But certainly if people put their name down and identify that they actually want to see those detailed drawings, they are available for viewing. And as I said, we will be having our peer review consultants undertake a review of those drawings to make sure that they're complete and consistent. Yeah, anyone's willing to look at those as well.
But we actually get notification or being doing that.
If you provide your name
Yeah.
and you identify that you want to be notified of those engineering drawings, like I said, that's going to be well after the next public report. And I don't know the timetable.
Yeah, I understand.
Then, yes, you can see it.
Okay, so I'll have that to the side.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Seeing no one else, council, any questions? or comments? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Council Tilly.
Move myself, that for moments that we do report for 32-2023 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in the future report to council on the witnesses of this matter.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. I assume and I expect you all to be watching. You can keep on. Good. Next motion, please. And then you have to hand it back to me. This one's talking.
One self, second by Councilor Chumley, that council is into process meeting at 8:37. Section 239 and litigation or potential litigation, including matters for administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. This will read and advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Municipal Act 239 2F.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Don't sit here. Okay,
So.
Base myself.
Councilor Tilly, you have the motion coming out of close. Good night.
Right there.
Move by myself, second by Council Austin, the township legal counsel are advised to are advised to advise the Ontario Land Tribunal and the parties to case number OLP 22 0044400 that the minutes of settlement are agreed upon, subject to any minor revisions as required by the township legal counsel, compromise in matters associated with the appeal of zoning bylaw amendment file number ZC 0320 and drawings and notes for inclusion in conditions associated with a license to be issued by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry associated with proposed chip pit. And that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute minutes of settlement on case number OLT -.2004400 upon the submission of a final document by township legal counsel.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And next is the bylaw council amended.
Myself, by Council Tilly, that file number 3424-23, being a bylaws within proceeding council on August 14th, 2023, be read the first, second, third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed by the mayor and clerk.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And Council Austin.
Moved by myself, second by Council Williams, whereas business for this council meeting has been completed at 9:01 p.m. And be it resolved that this meeting adjourns and meets again on Wednesday, August 16th at 6 p.m. for a special council.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you.